Hello everyone. So my name is Bill. I'm a fifth year medical student, and actually in high school, start of high school, I had a GPA of 2.9, which is not very high for a person who eventually, will apply for medical school or, be in the fifth year of medical school. But I'll be talking about how I was able to improve my GPA from a 2.9 to a 3.7, 3.8, and most I got was a 3.9 in high school. So I'll be talking about how that is done. So initially, some backstory is that I had a low GPA, relatively low GPA throughout my school days, school years, up until, high school. I didn't really focus on studies because I never really found like the importance of it. I really loved playing video games and watching anime and doing everything besides from studying. But yeah, I was able to change myself from a 2.9 to a 3.6, 3.7 GPA in around 8th to 9th grade. So I'll be giving some tips on how this can be done and what has worked for me, and maybe you can try it out. I'll be showing what I done, what I did throughout my years, and how I was able to improve that score. So a bit of backstory is that I rarely did any studying way back when I had a very bad GPA. I never cared about test scores. I sucked at working with people. Nobody really wanted to work with me way back. But a big change was that I decided that I want to pursue medicine, and that really got me, focused. But I guess the story of why I want to do medicine is just, another part, another video. But over here, I'll be talking about what I did. So first of all, we need to first understand that getting a relatively good GPA is definitely crucial, very important. A good GPA. A good GPA is very important, especially during your 9th to 12th grade. So that's the American system. I think the British, you would call it 10th year to 13th year. 10th year, 13th year. It's really important because that's the time where, you use your scores and you apply for university. So it's really important to score well during this time. Score well. So if you are in 8th grade, turning to 9th grade, that's really the time you should be working very hard to get your grades up, focus. But I wasn't a very intelligent student at the start, and I still don't think I'm very, intelligent in a sense, but I do find my ways around things and try to minimize, how do you say it, try to put in the least amount of effort to get the most amount of results. All right, so this is what I did. First, the most important thing that I learned is a tip is that you have to focus on your goals. You have to be very laid out on what you want to do. For example, you have to write, okay, I want to get into medical school. Medical school. Okay, yeah, so how will I do that? First, you have to open and see, okay, for this medical school, what do I need to get into there, right? So the concept I've always applied is, focus on what is important. Everything that is unimportant, just leave it behind. Focus on what you need to get to that goal. So for example, in medical school, for me, what I needed was a good score in, biology, advanced biology, AP biology, AP chemistry, and AP physics 1. That's what I needed for my medical school that I went in. The system's a bit different here because I applied for Thai medical school in Thailand, but it is a top 3 medical school here in Thailand. So they use scores like this to determine who gets to go in. It's relatively similar to the UK system where they use the BMAT. Because in Thailand here we use the PMAT as well. So I focus on this. So now I look at what I need to do, right? And then I focus everything on these subjects. In the sense that if we have uh, other subjects such as, English, Thai, that's really not what should be focused, right? Because you're using your AP biology, AP chemistry, AP physics scores to apply. So you really gotta, focus in because the amount of time we have is very limited. So we really want to focus on what gives the most bang for your buck, if you get what I mean. So I focus mainly on these subjects because this is what is used to apply. That's the first concept, is focus on what is important. Focus on what gives the most bang for your buck. View studying as what can I get the most from the least amount of studying, or what is the most amount of value I can get. See, I will apply this concept one more time. So the most bang for your buck, most bang for buck, get the most with the least amount of time. Another concept is, for example, you have a test on biology, biology specifically, the human body. Now, what you need to do now is figure out, okay, the exam on on the human body is composed of what parts? What is the exam testing you on? What are they testing? What is being tested? After figuring out what is being tested, then you have to think that, okay, out of all the tested materials, what is going to be tested the most? What is being tested the most? Tested the most. So for example, you would wait out, okay, 27% of the heart is being tested. 40% of the liver is tested. And I guess 10% of the brain is tested. In this aspect, what should you study first? Of course, you should study about the liver, right? Because it takes 40% of your exam. So that's a concept you have to keep on applying, the most bang for your buck. You have to think about, what can I get the most out of by studying the least? But then this concept doesn't end here, because the more you actually dive into it, you might be like a certain person who does not like liver. All right, if you don't like liver, then you have to find other points to focus on, such as, if there's also intestines being tested. And if you're relatively good at intestines and heart, then you can study intestines and heart, because by that sense, you weighed it out and you figured out that, okay, I can get the most bang out of my buck for studying intestine and heart because I'm already good at that. It's really a matter of weighing things and planning. So you have to be really, really, really good at planning things, because I personally do not like studying. I mean, it's kind of ironic, but I don't like studying. So I like to find ways to minimize the amount of effort I do. So this is one of the ways I do it. It's by finding the most bang for your buck. So that's the first concept. And this is also blended in by saying that find what material you're being tested on and figure out, okay, the material that you're being tested on, what topics are there? And out of the topics, which is being tested the most? And then that's how you actually focus on that and get a good score, because that is what takes the majority. You have to very much look at education, or like a studying as a, what is gain, what is loss, what is most worth. All right, and now I'll be going into a bit more in depth on, I guess, planning, and study techniques. So this concept is really important for bang for your buck. Now I'll be going into this one. So primarily, one thing that I did was cut out distractions. You can't expect to get a good grade or improve your grade if you don't, study. I mean, you have to study a bit to get a decent amount of grades, unless you're a genius. But studying, okay, it doesn't mean you study 4 to 6 hours, Doesn't mean that. Does not mean that. Doesn't mean you have to study 6 hours a day. One important concept you need to understand is that about studying is that it's not the amount of time studied, it's the quality of study time that is the most important, which is something I definitely forgot, sometimes, or I didn't apply in high school. I would think that studying 4 hours longer time equals better, but that's not really the case, because it's rather the quality of time studying. What does that mean, the quality of time studying? Well, that can mean during the 4 hours you're studying, you're hyper focused on your studies. You may have only 10-minute breaks per hour. You're not on your phone all the time. So you really gotta study. That's also one meaning of quality studying time. The second meaning I mean in quality studying time is the concept of basically effective studying, such as if you're studying biology, right? Especially memorization topics. So quality of studying. Memorization topics are very interesting in the sense that, such as biology, you really have to learn the framework of studying and understanding things. We've all heard of the triangle of knowledge. First, you've got to understand the material, understand, make connections to the material, and then memorize. That's basically the framework I use for biology, and especially in medical school. Understand, make connections, memorize. So there's multiple videos on how to understand, how to make connections, but I'll be talking about memorization now. So memorization, what are the memorization techniques? There are flashcards, there's spaced repetition, active learning. There's a lot of techniques, but in a sense, in short, is that you need to do active learning, active studying, anything that forces your mind to not passively reading. You have to actively learn and actively memorize, in the sense that if you read a textbook, compared to you read a textbook a little bit, put it in flashcards and understand it and memorize it, what will stick more? Of course, you need to use active learning, active memorization to memorize certain topics. And there's whole ton of videos out there on how to get that done, especially on the topic of biology. You can use flashcards, you can use the Feynman technique, you can try teaching it to someone else, There are many techniques out there, but you have to use active learning. That's how you maximize the amount of time. That's also connecting to the concept of most bang for your buck. So you've got to focus on your quality time of studying, be focused on studying, and use the right techniques towards studying. That's how you're able to study very less and get a lot of gain. That's on the topic of biology, right? So I'll be talking about the other subjects, such as maths, such as chemistry, such as physics. The interesting thing about this is that different subjects have different approaches towards studying. I would say active memorization, active reading, active recall. Yeah, active recall, such as using flashcards. So what I mean by active recall is that you try to forcefully pull the information from the back of your brain to the front. You're not passively reading a textbook. You're actually trying to bring that information from your memory. So you've got to use flashcards. That's how you memorize for biology, right? Because you don't trick yourself into knowing the answer. So you see a flashcard, what is the biology of a cell? Then you pull it from the back of your brain. That's really important. But thing is, for other subjects such as chemistry, physics, and maths, there's a different approach. What I found is that active recall, or spaced repetition, or the concept of pulling from the back of your head, you can't purely memorize for math. You can't purely memorize for physics. You can't purely memorize for chemistry. Well, some topics in chemistry takes memorization, but if you go into stoichiochemistry and you're calculating molecules, yes, yada yada yada, there's a huge emphasis on a certain aspect. For math, physics, and chemistry, what is most important, I think, is definitely practice and understanding. So I'll give you an example. For maths and physics, what I usually do is that I would first figure out what is being tested, right? What is being tested? Tested materials. What is being tested? And then I would figure out, okay, what are the topics on that? And then I would understand and go through the material. So, for example, if you're being tested on force and mechanics, you really have to understand the material, because physics does not work if you're just memorizing. You really got to understand the material. And after you understand the material and you know where this formula comes from, how does this work, then you practice. After practicing, what do? You do practice exam questions. And then you try to find patterns of what type of questions that I can be asked on the exam. And you work through all of them. That is what I did for math. That's what I did for physics. So you really got to know what is being tested. And then you got to understand the material. After understanding, you got to practice problems. And then you do practice tests. After practice tests, you figure out, okay, what types of questions, because you definitely can be asked multiple variations of questions, right? You figure each of them out, how to solve them. And after that, you go take the exam. That's how I would approach, math and physics. Well, in terms of chemistry, it's really interesting because chemistry is a blend of both math and physics and biology. So there's memorization parts where you use active recall, flashcards, but then there's also understanding parts like stoichiochemistry where, you got to practice problems, you got to do this. And that's how you really get good at, chemistry. And that's really what I did to improve my GPA from a 2.9 to a 3.7. I wouldn't say that I studied more, extremely hard. I feel like even while going through medical school now that I didn't study too much in high school. But at that time in high school, I did feel like I was making a big leap from a person who did not study at all. So this is the concept I used for improving my grades. Another thing that I would like to emphasize on is the importance of health. One thing I definitely regret in high school is not taking care of, going to the gym, working on my health, because, a healthy body is a healthy mind. An important thing is that you have to emphasize the importance of sleep, because during sleeping at least 7 to 8 hours, 6, 7, 8 hours, at least 6 hours is really, 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 really important, because during that process where you're sleeping, it's like you're bringing what you have studied back into your memory. And active recall is not gonna work, like using flashcards and you're doing hardcore studying without actually, sleeping. If you're not taking rest, then it's not possible, It's not possible to effectively study while you're lacking sleep, Sleep is very important. Do not miss out on it. You really have to understand that sleep is one of the crucial steps to actually getting a good grade, because when you're sleeping, you're memorizing. Think about it. All your hard work will go to waste if you don't sleep, because sleep brings it back into your memory. And then what do is that you keep on pulling it out when you're studying, such as using flashcards, spaced repetition. And that's how you memorize things for topics such as biology. So that pretty much concludes what I did to improve my grades from a 2.8 to a 3.7. And these all things helped me for right direction and get good scores enough to get into medical school. So this is what I did for, the key subjects of math, chem, bio, physics, and chemistry. Yeah, those are the main things that I did. So this will conclude the video. I hope this helps out someone out there.